Well, good afternoon to you, Richard, my friend across the pond, and good morning to me and those here on the East Coast in America. And just excited to get together with my brother Richard Kelly here, an executive coach and a wonderful leader, and just a friend that I've been able to continue to build such an incredible relationship with over the past several months, right, Richard? And we're excited now to have, I guess, our two-part series in this case on the value of engagement and culture. And I think one of the reasons is because it's kind of the hottest, I guess, topic of today in the sense of what so many leaders and managers and business owners are challenged with, but also have the opportunity, as you and I know, that they have opportunities to step into possibility, into becoming better as leaders, into this idea of they can have really an extraordinary place to work and to attract great talent, people that bring all that in, and or vice versa, there's companies that have attrition issues and people leaving and all those things that come when we don't show up engaged and come from a place of building culture. So thank you, Richard, for coming back to play with me on this topic, as it's fun to be able to draw out some of the hopefully what we like to do is draw out some of the nuggets of wisdom from what this means to be engaged. What does culture mean? I think there's a lot of confusion today in leadership and management and what that means. And I think hopefully today we'll pull out some more of what that means so we can use it in a practical way, in a way that actually also brings out the best in us and the best in others.
Yeah, I thanks, Steve. Thanks again. Lovely introduction from you, and thank you for acknowledging me. And I like to acknowledge you because it has been a great transformation of friendship and possibilities since we've known each other. So this is a wonderful opportunity to share to others how enthusiastic we are of working together, sharing, and but also letting people know about things that is going out there and what's happening out in the world. When you highlighted there about business and about companies, etc., what you and I have been talking about this, we've also listened to a very good podcast by Pete Carroll, who suggested also about his work in the NFL world, I believe, Steve, on your side, but his approach to his individual team members, the team itself, the culture, and what he created there. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that philosophy, that approach it can be taken into any type of domain, any type of work. What was interesting with him, how people used to say, or let's say they criticized, they may have judged him, we don't know exactly, but we're getting his story. But it's
Mm-hmm.
interesting to hear how Pete was sharing about his understanding of how to deal with people, and it came from his philosophy of love and compassion for the team. And but it's not about love and compassion of what we, this floaty stuff, but his love and compassion for his team, his colleagues, his staff, etc., in a way that they are being servicing each other and supporting each other, and they create this community. And this was interesting. I mean, we can touch on this angle, how
Mm-hmm.
he got the engagement from the team, which again can be put into a company, can be put into anywhere. That engagement, sitting them down and asking them what are their values, what are they wanting to create. And I think they came up with 3 values, Steve. I think that was what we
Mm-hmm.
heard.
Mm-hmm.
But that's interesting. He wanted to listen to these guys and these women that were supporting the community of this NFL team, but also the way they were choosing these people.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that, why are we wanting to choose Richard or Steve to play in our team? What is it that's making the difference? We know everyone has a chip on their shoulder. We all have. I have, you have, everyone listening has a chip on their shoulder. Though if you don't, then yeah, you're not telling us the truth about you.
Well, and as you're saying that too, and for those in Europe, so we call American football, I know it's soccer in Europe and around the rest of the world, we got it wrong, right? So we throw this ball, we call it football, right? And even though so
And
you
you wear
you
these. And you wear these funny helmets.
There you go. So we're talking about it's like we're talking about performance at the highest level for those that maybe don't watch football, but or any sports. But think about sports and leadership. You can we're using the metaphor. We can use leadership in sports. You can use it in corporations and business. You can use it in pretty much anywhere in the military. And it works the same. And so with Pete Carroll, the cool thing I didn't really share with you on that too, Richard, was that he's in his 70s. So you're also talking about think about that for leaders out there that go, man, do I need to get this right out the gate? Go, no, he practiced this over decades to grow as a leader and who he was being and becoming in the sense of identifying with others, like you said, the values and what they bring to contribute to the mission of the team. Well, that was because he was growing over this is over years of in the making, right? Where you see him today. And the cool thing about him is what I love about sports is you can see where that philosophy that he approaches, you can see a winning combination. He was winning in the collegiate level with that college level age and how different is the dynamics, and at the professional level. And he's one of the few to do that. And that's a really cool thing to say, what is he doing there? That we get to pull from to say, what is he creating in the environment? How is he showing up in himself to create a culture like that? Because if I don't, right, as you and I know, if I'm not being something, I can't see it in others either. I can't pull it from others if I'm not showing up this way as a leader myself. And then Pete Carroll is a good example of that he tried on things early in his career that other coaches more of the more of the patriarch or somebody that was maybe the paternalistic approach where this person with whatever coach says, we just go do it. And he's shifted that whole viewpoint where it's like, well, here's our mission, but I see something in you that's valuable, that is amazing, that can actually help us accomplish this mission without losing yourself in that. And there's a certain quality in leadership that you're talking about there as you're seeing. You think about it like this, we think about the two greatest moments in our life or the two greatest dates, right? People would say, well, the day you were born and the reason why. Well, I'd even flip that to say two greatest days are why I'm born, value, and then what I'm born for, my purpose, my mission, my passion. And Pete Carroll pulls that out perfectly, right? Leaders like him that can say, can I see the value in my team? And can I see the purpose of what they contribute to? Can they see that themselves?
Yeah, and I as you said that it's a different direction of leadership. Whereas before it was directive leadership, dictative leadership, whatever we used to say. But there are certain styles of leadership that everyone likes to adapt and change. But you've got to find your own style, Steve. We've got to find our own way of showing up and leading people in a way that's effective and adapted to the situation, because that type of leadership may not work in certain companies, and yet it will work. You can't copy and paste, as I'm trying to say. You can't copy and paste that strategy from Pete Carroll, but you can actually understand what's behind it. What was he trying to achieve with that? And everyone then can take little nuggets, whatever we wish to call them, so that they can adapt and change that accordingly. Because as you said, he's 70 odd and he's been adapting and changing accordingly for years to find that approach that gets that purpose for him to be there with these guys, and understands why he wants to support them, why he wants to be there for them. Because he sees the potential in everyone. He sees the possibilities in everyone. But he also sets, what's the word? A grounding. And what I think one of the values was be respectful, was it, Steve? Or something in that line. And what they understood that word to mean was to be showing up prepared. So the team had to arrive early. They had to make sure that they were in that meeting room prepared to be for each other. Now, that's part of respect for yourself and for the team. And that culture allowed them that everyone showed up on time. There was no one saying, oh, I'm sorry, I'm late. No. They were there on time. And if there was an issue, they had to solve it out and they had to resolve it with the team.
There you go. Mm-hmm.
Because anyone can say, hey, I'm sorry I'm late. Well, the bus was late or my children, but no, okay. What's really behind the story? What's really behind it?
So it's like a certain level of integrity within that respect, a level of integrity that's not just I'm a person of my word, but even when I'm not of my word, or when I need to change or adjust the schedule, or I need to say, hey, I'm going to be late, or I need to schedule for another day. How do I still stand in my integrity, even in the midst of honesty, right? Of being able to share, like, hey, it's on me to know that I'm late. This is drilled into me actually earlier when I was first became a coach. I remember my first mentor 2 minutes late on a call. Think about this, Richard. You know this. It's 2 minutes late on a call, but he didn't drill down and say, hey, dude, you're 2 minutes late for this call. And we could have done a whole coaching segment on that. But what he said was, and this got me, and I never forgot it, is he said, being 2 minutes late on the call, now we only have, instead of 60 minutes to work, we have 58 minutes of which to work. And I go, I'm paying for this hour. Damn it. To myself, I go, I lost 2 minutes of my own choosing. And the cool part, there was no judgment of, hey, you screwed up. It was more of, hey, now we get less time with each other because of your lack of choosing to show up on time. And I thought that was powerful because he never needed to judge or to come down on me or to say why. He was able to say, hey, now we're gonna have less time of which to build and create together. And that stuck with me because he also knew approaching me that way was going to help versus, sometimes maybe some of those people that we have to be like, yeah, they hit them on the head with a sledgehammer so they get the message. But really, if I'm showing up in this sense of understanding and value in the person that is on my team, I know them, I know what they bring, I know what they contribute, and I can call that out. Oftentimes, think about this, instead of accountability, as you know, right, Richard, we're like up leveling to this place of capability. Hey, I know what you're capable of, and you're not showing up like that. People hate to disappoint each other, especially we hate to disappoint people that maybe that affirm us, appreciate us, notice us, see our potential. We don't want to disappoint, do we? On the end of, say, the person that is late, the person that is showing up, and like you said, this idea of respect for another person's time and space and how they value that. And I think there's so many directions you can go off of, like when somebody shows up late for a meeting, right? It's like Dr. Seuss, oh count the ways, right? But I think the biggest part of it is using a teaching moment to bring and build a bridge of coming together closer because of those moments too. What do you think it takes in a leader to shift and recognize that, turning it from something where I'm gonna, condemn and criticize the person that's late to, hey, this is an opportunity to actually up level our work together. This might be the greatest coaching, mentoring that we've had yet, because there's so much that we can grow from this together in our learning.
Yeah, when you were saying that and what we've been taught, it's that observation,
Mm-hmm.
but it's the engagement of being honest and truthful and saying, hey, yeah, what can we learn from this? Let's not create a conflict out of this, or what solution is there? What is it that is missing that is not allowing you to be on time, or is not allowing you to be engaged with the team? What is missing? Because I don't know the answer. I know the answer for me, and it's for me. But what is it for Steve or for the people listening here? We got to be able to have a clear conversation with them and say, okay, what has been missing here
Mm-hmm.
to move forward?
So it sounds like a little bit like that. I seek first to understand. Stephen Covey talks about that in Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, where it's before I assume, before I judge, before I think I know why someone is. It's let me slow things down. Let me ask them questions about their life, seeking to understand what is it in their world. Maybe it's off the field issues like family and other relationships outside of work, right? Oftentimes that do come in, as you and I know from coaching, is if I slow things down and I seek first to see things from their point of view or their world, then it helps us actually bridge and build off of a solid foundation, right? Because now we actually have something to create and build with. So that conversation piece that you mentioned right there, what do you think? As you said that, you made me think about this. If this heart posture came up in my mind as you said that. You said, I'm showing up observational, wanting to engage. So we're talking about engagement and culture today. So engagement is that relationship that we talked about last time. And I love this idea of I can't give to others what I haven't given to myself
Yeah.
first. What's a way that leaders can show up with a welcoming posture, with an ability to observe and notice others? What is it? What do they need to do? And my coach would call this tuning my instrument. It stuck with me. It's like tuning my instrument, like a piano or a violin or a guitar. Before you play, you're tuning it, preparing it to play. What do leaders need to do to tune themselves to be ready to
Well,
play and to say, like sports, I'm jumping into the environment where I'm now going to lead others and I'm going to influence and engage with others. What do they need to do to tune themselves, prepare themselves with the welcoming posture?
when you were saying that, I was like thinking, get the garbage out of the head, first of all. Really be focused with that person in front of you. And if you're standing in front of them, look at them. Don't look down. Don't look to the side. Look at them. Look into their eyes. Look in and see that connection. You can do so much with even just with body language to connect with people.
Mm,
And the fact is, and then have nothing in your head that's trying to, well, if I ask this question, what's this going to be? And what if I'm going to ask it? No, nothing in your head. Just get curious and ask some questions, open questions, just to start off, just to see what's going on and listen and not listen to interrupt or listen to know better or listen to give them advice
mm,
because that ain't going to work for them.
yeah.
We've got to be able to listen at, as you said, everyone is going to come at a different level. And some are higher level than us in certain areas and in the way they are. And some are not. And we can't put judgment on that. Because if we're judging ourselves. That's how I see it. And as you said, what we do to others and we've got to do it to ourselves. So let's not judge anyone. Let's hear what the facts are. Let's hear what's going on in the story. And straight away someone's actually telling you a bit of BS.
Mm-hmm.
You see it. You see how the body responds, the eye movement, the
Mm-hmm.
facial movement, the posture movement. It will adjust accordingly. And yet they won't see that they're not actually telling the truth because they've had that repetition, repetition, repetition for such a long time until you call it out on them.
Yeah.
I really don't see that that's really you. Who are you really, Steve? Who are you, the public listening to this? Who are you? If you're being authentic with yourself, you're creating the power within yourself to be clear and truthful. And whenever you say something, I'm not saying anyone doesn't want to have an argument against it, but they'll hear that as the truth anyway.
Yeah. I love what you said there. You made me think of this as I was writing down this idea of time with people. Like if I'm showing up and I'm looking them in the eyes or I'm noticing whether someone's speaking the truth, like you said, a little BSing with me. It's because I spent time getting to know them too. As you said that, I spent time getting to know their world, how they're doing, who their family is, what they're about, what they like to do when they're not working, what they like to do at work. I spent time with them getting to know who they are. Oftentimes leaders fall into these two spaces. You can speak to this a little bit, Richard, is this transactional space versus this relational space. Transactional is okay, we have business, we have a mission, we have jobs to do. We have to get this done. Oftentimes as leaders, we might be like, hey, did you get that report done? Hey, did you get that project done? Hey, where you at with this? Fill in the blank. Oftentimes do we show up as leaders, like you were just saying, and just say, how are you doing? How's your family? Or we just had to celebrate 4th of July, 2 days ago, and they do fireworks like a madman here in Florida. It's awesome, right in the street, in a parking lot. We had to like duck, and almost one of the firecrackers went off and went flying towards us. I had to dive with my son. I go, they know how to live it up here in the Southeast, and we're new here. And I just thought to myself, asking people, how was your holiday? How was your time with your family? Because that gives us the inside door and the window to also people listening better, right? When you think about us as leaders listening, but as we're listening to our staff, it's oftentimes that day-to-day conversation and asking, how are you doing? What are you up to? More so, which is the relational space, more so than just the transactional. The transactional matters, but as you and I noticed, it can kind of take over things when,
Yeah.
say, there's a financial crunch or something didn't go right in the company, or there's this pressure put on maybe at a higher level
Yeah.
to produce and perform. And what do you say to that, as we're talking about this transactional versus relational space? I love what you said is I'm getting the garbage out and I'm looking at them face to face, and I'm staying curious about them.
Yeah. Yeah. And that in effect is creating the culture.
Mm-hmm.
Small changes, small way of being who you are, how you show up is creating that culture.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have to be a big change. It can be just a small change in appreciation, in acknowledgement. That in itself, when you start to acknowledge your team and the people around you and even your clients, acknowledging them for actually showing up
Mm-hmm.
or acknowledging them for sharing things and the way you've appreciated them, contacting you,
Mm-hmm.
etc. That is creating the culture. We have a big thing about this culture. It has to be a big thing. Really, it's like the bridge behind me. It has to be that big, the culture. Really?
Mm-hmm.
Really? What is culture? What is the definition of culture for everyone listening? But what is it culture to you as an
Mm-hmm.
individual? What does that really mean if you're in an organization? As we said with Pete Carroll, he created that culture where his players could show up and they could share things. Big guys crying, big guys sharing stuff that was personal to their colleagues, to their mates, to their teammates, to the coaching staff. He wanted to get them to not only be a better player, but a better person, be a better father, be a better partner, be whatever. It's endless
So it
because
sounds
that's
like sounds like as you're saying that, the word caring came up for me, right? This idea where there's a caring component, like you said with Pete Carroll or those in the organization. When I'm showing up from culture, like I love how like it's made into this big thing that nobody understands, and when you realize, oh, I'll just show up in a caring way. I care about you in a way that I get to stay curious. I get to notice you. I get to see the value in you. I get to appreciate you. Think about appreciation. The number one thing, and you know this too, is you might be able to speak to this, Richard, is I work with a couple companies on the West Coast, and they're having attrition issues. So people leaving, not filling back the voided empty spots as fast as they'd like to, and or unrest because there's a performance of a product that needs to it needs to land well. Otherwise the company's in jeopardy with their sponsors, for instance. But notice what they usually cut out first. This goes back to the transactional versus relational. As appreciation goes down, starts to it starts to go to the back. Acknowledging others goes to the back. Taking time to be curious tends to get shoved under the rug somewhere, and they get back into transactional. we need to just produce, forgetting that people's drive and willpower and sense of meaning and purpose and passion come from those very things that we were just talking about, of when I'm edified and affirmed of who I am, the value I bring, I'll never be able to outperform that. That's where my performance comes from. Maybe you could speak to that, Richard, where if I'm fulfilled in who I am and what I bring, and my leader notices me, my production is going to be at the utmost. Say for this company that needs to hit the bottom line, needs to get this product out, or needs to keep a good talented employee from leaving. You've seen that too, and I know we've had some conversations about that. What's a few things that pop in your mind with that, with companies today, right? We have a changing world, right? We have a world that's changing faster than ever, rapidly, right? And yet in that we lose sometimes those core elements that we're talking about. They kind of go by the wayside, and it's like dodging the water out of the leaky boat. What's some thoughts that you have on that?
When you were sharing that, what popped up for me was clearly knowing what you want. And that can be in any domain. Just, clearly know what you want with yourself, clearly know what you want for your family. What is it you want with your partner? How you really want to create your relationship with your wife or your husband? How you want to create your relationship with your children, your friends, your family? Being clear, knowing what you want. And don't be afraid to say, this is not what I want, but this is what I'm looking for. And being adapted to it and changing accordingly to it, because there's no right or wrong. And when we talked about the culture, I was just thinking, oh yeah, we've created this culture here, and okay, can you put it in a bucket? Can we carry it around?
That's great.
Can you actually show me this culture? Because it's living and breathing in every single person as I see it. And if that's the case, there's your culture.
Oh.
But to try and create a culture of good HR activities, good styles of let's have team meetings, let's have team events, really? Is that what really the team is really looking for? They're probably wanting a better, clear understanding of direction. They probably want to have a clear understanding that they're being heard. They want a clear understanding that you're open to listen to them. And the fact that you're also wanting to hear from them in a way that they've possibly never been heard before.
Sounds like there's some key ingredients in there, Richard, as you said that. One, up to my mind, as you said, we can't make it mandatory. We can't make it, you need to, you have to, you must come along and join the fill in the blank. You see this happening with, well, to be honest, with diversity, equity, inclusion today. There's a lot of mandatory. I've been in some of these meetings. They've had me come in and I go, what we're talking about is not through coercion, control, manipulation, or through mandatory. We're talking about something that's a welcoming, a caring. I love you said living and breathing. I can carry it in a bucket with me. Culture is that very next conversation I have of being caring for myself and those that I'm about ready to step into a conversation with. I love that, carrying in a bucket. And with that, I see that heart posture of I have a welcoming spirit, a welcoming being in me. And then along with that, I love this idea of high-fiving. I think Mel Robbins had a good book called High Five Someone Today. High five yourself in the mirror before you leave the house. And I thought, how can we high five or fist bump or shake hands or hug or virtually just being able to smile at each other to show that I appreciate you. That's a natural posture in me. I don't have to force it. I'm not doing it to try to earn anything. It's something it's a part of who I'm being and becoming. And I think in that you're talking about the secret, almost like the secret sauce, the secret ingredients to establishing that engaged culture that Pete Carroll has created, of course, with the teams he's worked with, but how leaders in all walks of, doesn't matter which company they're leading right now, they're capable of stepping into that and creating that from the very next conversation, not years to. This is what happens with one of the reasons I love talking with you on engagement and culture is it gets so vague and big and wild out there that we forget to realize I have the power within me to create that in my very next conversation, the way I show up with in the next meeting, the way I show up to the next challenge.
Yeah.
Do I stop
Yeah.
appreciating people when crap hits the fan? Do I stop
Yeah.
noticing? Do I stop showing up being that person I am based on external measures? Or do I stay buoyant? I love this word poise, right? Poise meaning, can I stay poised? Can I stay steadfast even despite external changes in an environment? Because you think about there's four things that we have that we know we have probably in Europe. I don't know how it works in Belgium, but like death and taxes, we know we have those two guarantees. But the two that people don't prepare for, and I think this speaks to that also, is change and crisis. Four things, so right? And the two things, change and crisis, people don't prepare themselves inwardly for proactively. You're talking about this proactive stance of how do I prepare myself to be engaging with others? How do I prepare myself to step in? Like we said, culture is just it's the each conversation I have of caring, I can carry that in a bucket. It's living and breathing. It's not out there mysteriously somewhere else. It's right here within me.
Yeah. And I think what from what I'm hearing there is not to be afraid
Mm,
of saying what you need to say. Okay, you may have to find the expressions or the words that you need to share. I was in an event and I appreciated this presentation done by the CEO and his team. And I went to say goodbye and he put his hand out. I said, no, no, no. I want to hug you because I appreciate you. Really, you've done a great job here. And he was like, oh, great. He was like, yeah, let's do it. Hugged each other. He said, oh, I really appreciate that. Now, I could have given the handshake, but that's not really me. That's not being me. And it's not it's just I really want to appreciate you. That was really a great job. What you presented for everyone.
mm,
And the face changed.
mm,
I could see it. His eyes changed. His facial changed so much. And he was like, oh, great. Someone really kind of sees me for who I am.
mm. Yeah.
Giving that hug created something. You don't know what it's going to create in the fact of create something later on in the future, create another conversation. We don't know. But by just acknowledging that person, not being afraid to say, no, I don't shake hands. Come on, it changed the dynamism of that relationship with that particular CEO. You can do it with everyone. You do it with your family and friends. I know I do it. I do it with all my family and friends. Let's hug. I'll shake it. No, we hug. Come on. It's let's cut down this barrier. It doesn't have to be a hug. It's what you are presenting for yourself. And if it is a hug, make sure it's a strong handshake. Make sure it's a handshake that they really can feel that you really are meaning something to them.
So it sounds like what you're saying too, as you said that, is allowing yourself to be Richard, right? Allowing yourself to be who you are, your natural, authentic self, and what you bring, right? Almost like the fullness of you coming out, as if you're anywhere in the world. Just
Yeah.
we happen to be talking about maybe business or working in a company, but really it could be anywhere. Relationships, out in the community, out in the wherever we live. It's not holding back from being that, not holding back from being that part that's in our spirit naturally that we tend to resist or hesitate. You're saying, no, I'm letting it all out. And the cool thing is too, I think in this too, Richard, is this is also the answer we'll talk about in future sessions to burnout also. Because when I'm engaged and I'm caring in this culture that I live in, and it's living and breathing as if it's right in front of me now, I can't be burned out. We'll talk about that in the
Yeah.
future. We'll get deep into that. But I love what you're saying there also. And it might come to this, and it has with many I know that I've coached, and I'm sure you have, where if my being is this is who I am, shaking hands and I'm welcoming, and maybe the culture I'm in or the company I work with, maybe they're not about that. And that might be okay to be, maybe this isn't the place for me. And that's okay too, because there is a
Yeah.
place for me that is the right home, the right, the right fertile soil for me to grow. And I think removing the fear of, hey, I need to hesitate and hold back a little, not reveal who I am. I think this is a big thing that you see on these studies on people want engagement. They want their bosses to notice them. Well, it's that fertile soil, like you said, that say, what do you want? And we're not afraid to go there because I'm not afraid to go there. So I open up this, what Brene Brown would say, this place of vulnerability that now we can go. And now people want to stay in the company, which is interesting, right? They go, wow,
Yeah.
I'm noticed, I'm cared for, I'm appreciated. We can talk about the hard stuff. I can be me. I think
Yeah.
this is a place I want to land my ship for a while.
Yeah, and there could be many other reasons for
Mm-hmm.
people to leave organization, and we don't
Mm-hmm.
know because they
Yeah.
do these surveys, and we don't know if they are really saying what they are saying.
Mm-hmm.
But when you hear about vulnerability again, we're going to be talking that in our future sessions as well. But vulnerability is something that's kind of like, oh, can't be vulnerable. It's kind of really like a black cloud, you know, you shouldn't be vulnerable. Well, why not? Life is teaching us about something in this moment. And if it has to be vulnerable, we have to be vulnerable to it. Because if we start to think of it being bad and then we're creating another session, another something, conversation about being vulnerable, of course it's going to feel vulnerable. It's all made up anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Where's that word come from? It's popped up and said, oh, this could be vulnerable. Oh, really? Are you
That's
questioning
and
it?
that's the key too, Richard. You say that is if I'm releasing judgment, if I'm releasing assumptions, if I'm trying to one up someone or trying to show someone that they're wrong or I'm right, if I can release that and get back into almost like this sense of I value you in our company, this we, us, and our, like we're in this ship. Going back to the ship metaphor, we're in this ship together. You hear that sometimes leaders will say that, but they don't know what they're saying. It's like we're in the boat together. Or I heard recently, get in the well, right? From Dr.
Yeah.
John Townsend, a great psychologist and executive coach here in America. He said, get in the well. If I'm in the well, means I need to be vulnerable. I need to go there with them to this place where they feel valued and welcomed. I think what people hold back, as you know, I'm not going to reveal myself because it could hurt me in the end, Richard. Don't you know? This could cost me in my annual performance, or I might get fired, or they might not like it. And I go, well, how much energy and effort does that
Yeah.
take to stay not being yourself? How much extra drama and extra toil? Think about disease. We could go into a whole session on that, on the stress causing disease, right? But how much does that create to not show up in that? And I think that's a big places where if people are, if vulnerable is accepted, if it's a place of welcoming, it's because the leader first showed up that way themselves. Like going back to Pete Carroll. So we're coming in full circle in our talk today. He shows up and he shares all and reveals all. Nothing's
Yeah.
hidden in his life.
No.
And you think about, and that's his way of showing up. But in a sense, when a leader, especially today's age, maybe 30 years ago, people would be like, I don't know what you do behind closed doors and I don't care. Well, it's not that way anymore, as you and I know in 2023. It's this vulnerability starts from the leaders being vulnerable, willing to share, willing to get in the well, willing to almost like inviting others into that space. Hey, I'm vulnerable. And hey, now you can lower your guard. Great. We can all lower our guard together. And there's where we can have those difficult conversations that come up, or the things that, why didn't this happen the way it could have? because we're all together now. So there's a healthy, say healthy, uh, healthy conversations that come up even when we run into conflict, that we can work at it together because there's a solid foundation built on this idea where we are fully engaged. We are sharing and caring from a place where I love what you said there is I can carry it around with me. It's live, it's well, it's breathing within me and within us.
Yeah, when you were sharing that, what popped up for me was, that it's okay saying being who you are, and people may not understand that.
Mhm.
But I think how I understood it was just show up. If you make a mistake, you make a mistake. Put your hand up, made the mistake, rectify it, sort it out, and move on. You learn from that experience and then you move on. Because we're constantly getting these experiences daily, every minute, every second, even. And it's okay to be, yeah, okay, I learned. I saw that, did this. Okay, yeah. I had a discussion with my son just lately, just like, Dad, what it is before we do this. And, oh, son, I've had enough. I put the phone, and then I said, no, that's not right. Okay. Spoke to get back to him and said, okay, let's do this. I look at this. Yeah, okay. Can you do that? Yes. Okay, good. We
Mm,
cleared it up. You clear it up. You clear your BS up because it's already created anyway. We've created it anyway in our heads about what we're going to do, how we're going to be, where we're going to be, what's going to be like. I'd have the conversation before I actually spoke to my son about it.
mhm,
And that's not what it should have been. It should have been just a clear, open conversation. So anything we're doing here, we're talking about, it can be related to
mhm.
anything.
Yeah. When you
And
think
it,
about that, it's feedback. Like you said, when we're building that foundation of curiosity, of getting to know each other beyond just beyond the performance or the working, my work that I have to get done today. When I go beyond that and the person who we are being, then feedback can be used to learn. It's no longer just identity. If I fail, what happens? If I mess up, what happens? Because now there's fertile soil built in feedback. Great, we can almost welcome it more. Like,
yeah,
good failure, son or daughter. Like I tell my kids, good job on your failure. Like, what? No, it has to be perfect. It goes, well, perfection doesn't exist.
no,
Mastery does. Two very different things. Perfectionism is always going to be built on, I'm not good enough. Mastery is going to be, I got a little better, a little bit better. Like you said, I show up and I just bloop, another deposit. So
yeah,
that feedback for learning, right? And I'm flying out to a company here in a few months to talk about feedback because they're having complications with showing up in a way where feedback is value learning instead of feedback is my ego, my identity. I get squashed within that. And messing up in our companies is not a good thing, Steve. And I go, well, then no one's ever going to perform at their best ever. You'll
yeah,
never get the best out of people. You're always going to have a less than. It's kind of Jim Collins wrote the book called Good to Great. They'll stay in the land of good. They'll never make it to great because they're not allowing themselves to engage in a place where feedback is awesome,
hmm.
necessary. Me and because as coaches, we have our mentors, we have our coaches, our counselors that pour into us. And when leaders don't have somebody pouring into them, I think that gets missed.
Yeah. I mean, that's a different subject as well, of how
Mm-hmm.
how leaders are and how they deal with that and how they move
Mm-hmm.
forward with that and how they consult each other. That's
That's
another
it.
topic we can share. But I think
Mm-hmm.
what we've tried to highlight here, that engagement and culture, specifically in business, it's not a bad thing. And it
Mm-hmm.
and it and it can be changed if you look at it from a different angle, from a different lens, or where you're seeing it right now. And that's important to understand, that reaching out to people, having a conversation, even if having a conversation with your partner and say, look, my team, we're not engaging. What's going on? And your partner usually tells you the truth. 99.9% they will tell you what's going on because they're able to see it from a different perspective and they're able to say and be truthful. Giving them the permission to be truthful is key because once they do that, it opens up and you kind of go, whoa, hit a wall. This is what's happened. And that's where you start to learn again. Because we're unlearning to learn all the time in being a leader, being a parent, being a friend, a colleague, a teammate. Our life is never ending in learning about ourselves and about how we communicate, how we show up. You know, there's a amount of information out there, and you could be swamped in trying to see how you should show up, how you should be. But at the end of the day, there's only one Steve, there's only one Richard. Just show up in who you're being at that moment. And then that's all you need to do. That will help to engage yourself with your clients, with your colleagues, with your boss. And it will create the culture also about how you're going to show up. Because by showing up, you create that culture. You create that, yeah, I do have good days and I have bad days.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, I still want to be supporting people, wanting to be of service to people. I love people and compassion for people. I don't want to be angry with people. Is that the really road you want to go down in your culture of your organization, being upset and angry all the time? Because it just creates that dark cloud over everything. And yet, if you can just stop, observe what you're doing, and listen to yourself and listen to others, you have that opportunity to make that first step. And it's
Mhm.
only that first step you need.
Mhm.
Reaching out to someone, having a conversation, listening to someone differently. It really makes a difference. And it will make that difference within you as the person who's just sitting there.
Mhm. That's key right there, Richard. I think that's key is what I when I learned from today, what came out for me is in being engaged, engagement and culture is being a human being. Allowing ourselves to be a human being and nothing else, not a human doing. There's no performance. Notice the whole talk today was built on the value of just who I am, how I show up,
Yeah.
allowing myself to be that. I call it naked and unashamed, right? It's like they used to have shows like they stick you out in the woods and you'd be, now try to figure out how to get back to, back home. And it's like, how about if we start like that in the sense of like, I can be vulnerable, I can be unashamed, I can be naked in the sense of presenting as I am today. And let that be the beginnings of engagement and culture.
Yeah. So everyone, listen to that. Be human. It's okay if we make mistakes, but just remember you're still a human being.
That's it. Thank you so much. And I'll have our Richard's contact information and mine, of course, in the show notes. For those that really want to look at, I need to take steps towards that. Maybe something that you heard today that you go, how can I create that within myself as a leader, but also within my culture? And we'd love to just connect with you and help you take steps towards that. Or maybe you're there at a good place, but you realize there's more issues coming and more because the stakes are higher now in your company, and that's a great place to engage. Like Richard said, just starting with a conversation with somebody that can help you see, maybe further, maybe deeper into the trenches of your day to day. So thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you at our next conversations across the pond. Well, Richard, I want to say bye for now, and I'll see you the next time we meet.
Yeah. Bye, everyone. And thanks, Steve.
You're
Thanks
welcome.
again for the time. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye bye.